web stream.
Okay.
Sorry, one sec. We're just looking at some audio issues here.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
no rush. Morning, everybody.
Oh, and good morning as well, everyone.
Good morning, Ms. Pitt.
Morning, Councillor Fletcher.
Good morning. No camera, just me. Voice.
Good morning, Councillor Fletcher. Nice to see you again.
You.
I trust all is well with the film board.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Excellent. You're in good hands.
Mr. Chair, as you said, we are ready to rock.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Ainsley. I'm the chair of the General Government Licensing Committee. The clerk has just confirmed for us that we have quorum, so I would like to call meeting number 17 to order and welcome everybody and good morning. Today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public will continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays and technical issues. Members, this is a paperless meeting. The city clerk has provided all agenda materials via the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff will be available to everyone, both in person and remote participants, to help you with your devices. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as the chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate and vote on items. Members, I'd also ask you to keep your mics muted unless you wish to question staff or speak on an item, and please ensure that your video is turned on. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hands or unmute their mic if they wish to question or speak to staff. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it's their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure they turn on their video and to raise their hand to indicate their vote. Members, I would also like to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at gglc@toronto.ca to help with any motions. If there are any visiting members of council attending the meeting today, and I did hear Councillor Fletcher, welcome. I encourage you to turn on your video so that I know you're present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or speak. This will also assist the clerk staff to record attendance for the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Although we're in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also would like to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. If you do have an interest, if you could please raise your hand and unmute your mic. Seeing none, I need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on October 5th, 2020.
So moved.
Councillor Holliday's moving the minutes of October 5th, 2020. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carried. We do have 12 items on the agenda this morning. There's no speakers listed. Item number 12 has a confidential attachment with it. We might need to go into camera. Go through the agenda now. GL 17.1 is the timed item for 9:45 a.m. apportionment of property taxes as of November 2nd, 2020. It's a public hearing, so I will hold that in my name. Item number 2 is also 9:45, as I said. It's the cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes as of November 2nd, 2020. Item number 3 is the status of outstanding payment in lieu of taxes amounts to the federal, provincial, and municipal properties.
Hold, Leon.
Councillor Filion is holding number 3. Thank you, Councillor Filion. Number 4, accounting services and purchasing and materials management divisions activities, January 1st to December 31st, 2019. It's their annual report from the controller. Anybody like to hold that? Seeing none, would somebody like to move the recommendations?
So moved.
Councillor Holyday is moving the recommendations in number 4. All in favor? Carried. Number 5 is non-competitive procurement activities, the 2019 annual report.
Hold. Holiday.
Councillor Holyday is holding number 5. Number 6, councillors' constituency offices, designation of portions of the properties used as a municipal capital facility in wards 1, 6, 9, and 19. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Naziat is moving the recommendations in number 6. All in favor? That's carried. Number 7 is the Toronto Licensing Tribunal 2019 annual report and update on their 2018 recommendations. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Filion?
Sure.
Councillor Filion's moving the recommendations in number 7. All in favor? Carried. Number 8 is an amendment to the purchase order for the state of good repair improvements of the Mary McCormick Recreation Center in Ward 9. I don't know if it's in Councillor Matlow's ward. I do not see Councillor Matlow. He said he was okay with it. I will move the recommendations. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, Councillor Matlow.
And I'm Ward 12.
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry. Councillor Bylow's ward is Ward 9. My apologies. Would somebody like to move the recommendations for this item, number 8? Councillor Matlow, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Number 9, below market sublease agreement with the Canadian Mothercraft Society for a nonprofit childcare facility at 45 Dunfield Avenue in Ward number 12. Councillor Matlow. Councillor Matlow is moving the recommendations on this item. All in favor? Carried. Number 10, proposed sale of surplus city-owned public lane known as Brigden Place in Ward 13.
Hold. Filion.
Councillor Filion is holding number 10. Number 11, access and waiting areas at City Hall for people with disabilities. This is an update report. I do have a motion that I'm going to move on behalf of Councillor Wong Tam, who emailed it in this morning. Is there anybody that would like to hold this item otherwise? Okay. Matthew, can we get the motion up on the screen?
Yeah, we'll put that up in just 1 second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, will this report go to council?
Yes. Did you want to speak on it, Councillor Fletcher, or ask questions, or?
Oh, I can do that at council. It really has to do with the new screening area and anybody with a disability in line.
Okay. Okay. And sorry, Matthew, just for clarification, this report is going to council.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is correct. This report goes to council.
Okay. All right. Are you okay with that, Councillor Fletcher? You're okay with asking questions of this side on the floor of council?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm moving a motion on behalf of Councillor Wong Tam that's on the screen now. It was on the screen. I'll give everybody a moment to read it. Does anybody have any questions for me? Seeing none, so I'm moving the amendment that's on the screen. All in favor? Carried. Item as amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then our last item is, where'd my screen go? There we go. Number 12, Transaction update of city-owned 50 Cumberland Street /37 Yorkville Avenue. It has a confidential attachment. I do have some questions on that one, so I'm going to hold that one down in my name.
Mr. Chair, I also have questions on that one, so.
And
Okay,
I
perfect.
also have questions on that one, Mr. Chair, and it's possible that on 10 and 12, I may need to go in camera if staff can't answer my questions in public. I'll try to do a bit of that offline during the meeting if I can.
Okay, perfect.
And I definitely have in-camera questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Matthew, we're more than likely going in camera on number 10 and 12. We'll do that at the end of the meeting. We'll hold those two items for last. Okay, so we have, our first two items are for 9:45, which is in 5 minutes. So I'm going to start item number 3, status of outstanding payments in lieu of tax amounts for federal, provincial, municipal properties. Councillor Filion, you held number 3. Do you have questions of staff?
A very broad question. I had trouble, frankly, understanding the report. So if staff could very briefly take us through it. I'm just not totally clear on who owes us money and why. I did see the chart, but I'm not clear, for example, whether it's CBC owes us money or the federal government owes us money, and how did that happen, and are we trying to collect it? And it just wasn't totally clear to me.
So, good morning, everyone. It's Casey Brendan, Director of Revenue Services, and through you, Mr. Chair. And are you hearing me?
The only thing they can see is the lights.
Switch, that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see if you want. I'm up in the upper left corner. That's all they can see.
Are people hearing me? It's Casey Brendan.
We can hear you.
Hey, Casey.
Thank you. So let me explain this report. This report is submitted annually, and it reports on outstanding payments in lieu by the various levels of government. If you look at the report itself, it suggests that the level of payments in lieu outstanding are approximately equal to where they were last year. And the amounts outstanding vary by level of government, and that is evident from the table in the report. Table 1 in the report shows the level of payments in lieu outstanding, and the detail is provided in attachment 1 to the report. And so you are correct, Councillor Filion, in your question. In terms of federal properties, the largest amount outstanding by far is the CBC property, and with approximately 8.3 million outstanding in payments in lieu. And the reason there is the value for Canadian Broadcasting Corporation headquarters at the corner of Wellington and John has been under dispute with MPAC for a good number of years, between MPAC, the city, and the CBC. And so the CBC has been making payments based on what they believe the value should be, and the amount that is shown as the receivable is the amount that's reflected by the MPAC assessment for that property. The actual amount of PILTs payable is somewhere in between those two amounts. And I can report that we have now, in fact, received confirmation of an agreement with MPAC, CBC, and the City of Toronto that will see the value reduced and therefore the outstanding payment in lieu of taxes reduced. So that amount, it is a question of timing, and it was a question of solving the assessment dispute. On the provincial PILT, which is table 2 in attachment 1. Are you with me? You will see the largest by far outstanding amount is Infrastructure Ontario, which is the provincial government. And these relate to the long-standing settlement of West Don Lands properties. Again, assessment appeals that have now been resolved, but the actual adjustments to the payments in lieu of taxes has not taken place yet. So while you see there is a large amount outstanding, we expect that those will be resolved shortly, within the next month or two, once all the credits have been put in place from those assessment appeals. So are there further questions that I can answer?
Just one more question, which is, so is it the agency that owes us the money, or is it the government body? So is it the provincial government or CBC? Or Infrastructure Ontario or the province?
Yes, in the case of crown corporations like CBC, it is in fact the CBC that owes us the money. In the provincial case, any provincial property that is leased by a government ministry is generally handled by Infrastructure Ontario. So they would be the ones responsible to pay the taxes. And the same thing with federal properties where there are federal government institutions or government offices. Those are paid by Public Works and Government Services Canada. So in some cases, it's the agency itself. In some cases, it's the government ministry that has the umbrella responsibility for payment.
So the two largest in federal and provincial have been resolved or are in the course of being resolved, it sounds like. Are there any on here that you want to bring to your attention where there are agencies that clearly owe the money that just aren't paying it?
There's nothing truly outstanding, and we are continuing to collect on those property taxes. If you look at the page for municipal payments in lieu that are outstanding, they're smallish amounts, and they generally relate to properties, in some cases Parks, Forestry, Rec, in some cases the Toronto Parking Authority. But in a lot of those cases, those will resolve themselves over time once we figure out who didn't pay the bill or why they didn't pay the bill. And in some cases, there's been transfers of property between one department or one division and another. So none of them are sort of problematic to the point where we don't think we'll be able to collect them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question, Mr. Chair?
Councillor Holladay, questions of staff?
Yeah, and it's maybe something rather simple. I just wondered if it was possible between now and council to get a list of the outstanding properties. And if something like West Don Lands, if it's complicated, right, you know, a whole bunch of blocks or addresses, just to know it's West Don Lands, because I couldn't tell that from the chart where the places were. They were just kind of general categories. And I wondered if staff could just agree to an undertaking, if somebody could send me an email, and if it's a very complicated undertaking, we can just talk about it. But I would be curious to see exactly where the buildings and locations are.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Holladay. Yes, we in fact can absolutely do that. That's an easy request to fulfill. And in the case of the West Don Lands, as you might expect, there are multiple properties that are involved that have had appeals on them for a period of time. But we do have that backup information. We're happy to send it to you.
Thank you. That was it.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on this item? Councillor Fillion, you held this item. Did you want to speak to it?
I'm fine. All my questions were answered. Thank you.
Okay, so you move the recommendations
Sure.
for receipt? Okay, Councillor Fillion's moving the recommendations on number 3. All in favor? Carried. So at this point, it's 9:49. I'm going to go back to item number 1, which is a scheduled hearing, apportionment of property taxes as of November 2nd, 2020 hearing. It's a statutory meeting. There's no speakers on this item. So I think I will move the recommendation. All in favor? Carried. Our next item, number 2, is also a statutory item. The 17.2 cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes as of November 2nd, 2020. There's no registered speakers on this item.
Mr.
There
Chair.
are 2 recommendations. Sorry?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's a motion to amend as well on this one.
Okay. Okay, we do have the recommendation number 1 be amended to read as follows. The General Government Licensing Committee approve the individual tax appeal applications made pursuant to Section 323 of the City of Toronto Act 2006, resulting in tax reductions, excluding phased-in and capping amounts identified in the detailed hearing report, marked as Appendix A to the report, October 19th, 2020, from the Controller, excluding the following applications. Ward 10, appeal number 202-000-594, and the property address is known as 2 Muggs Island Parkway. Does anybody have any questions of the mover? Seeing none. All in favor of the amendment? Carried. All in favor of the item as amended? Carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is number 5, non-competitive procurement activities. It's a 2019 annual report, and this was held by Councillor Holiday. Councillor Holiday, do you have questions of staff?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna reverse the order. I was gonna have some general questions, but I want to ask a specific one first. The report alludes to a bit of a process, and I think it's a risk-based process that PMMD uses to look at non-competitive procurements across the board. And I wondered if staff could elaborate a little bit more on that process, how it works, how many reviews there's done, how things are selected. I don't know who would take the lead on that. Maybe it's Mr. Pachalak.
Yeah. Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Holiday. Yes, there's a process to analyze divisional purchase orders primarily that is run by PMMD. What we do is we run the data to identify anything unusual or any if there looks like repeated use of particular vendors, or if there's information in the data that just suggests that there's not enough information. We run a process to kind of identify which divisions should be targeted for initial review, and then we do a sampling of items to kind of understand, did they follow the process? Is all the information behind there that's for the divisional purchase order in the file? And is there something missing in terms of anything that can kind of come out? So, on the surface level, it could kind of look like things are, for example, the division is splitting purchases between vendors, but it may be that it's simply the way that they've inserted the data into SAP, that it's not detailed enough to recognize the fact that, they were actually very separate instances. In 2019, we were working on revising the process, which came out of an audit from the Auditor General, and we had not had a chance to do an audit or very much audits on 2019, because by the time 2020 hit, we have unfortunately were redirected to focus on responding to COVID. So we're trying to restart that now to go and analyze some of the divisions with respect to any anomalies in their data.
Okay. Are you going to break out COVID-related purchases for next year's report? Because I imagine it's going to be quite different because of what you've had to do and go through.
Through the chair, yes. In 2020's annual report, yes, we'll have to very clearly set out our COVID report, and that is why a cycle ago we brought forward what emergency COVID report, sole sources we had already done.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know how much time I've got left, but maybe I'll ask just a general question. If staff could talk to us a little bit about the process used for non-competitive procurement across the board. And I really mean the business process. So what is the decision-making structure, right from an inexpensive purchase card payment all the way up to, we don't have to talk about over $500,000 because that goes to council, but who inside the Toronto Public Service has the decision, and who scrutinizes each time that there's a non-competitive procurement? The report talks about a form. Forms are great, but somebody has to make a business decision and sign off on these things. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think the committee should understand that process that leads to this type of a report.
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Holiday. In both purchases up to 50,000 and then purchases over up to 500,000, the division initiates the form. Sometimes it's after consultation with PMMD, and sometimes it is depending on the circumstances. They may just proceed. They have to for anything that comes to PMMD. The form is first sent before it gets sign off from the division. We actually review it, ask follow-up questions, ensure that the backup documentation is there, and then that review process actually goes through a manager and through myself before then it is sent back to the division for review by the appropriate signing authorities there. And that is often includes the division head, and in some cases, if it's like, for example, for consulting, it may also have to go to the city manager. For up to $50,000, that's all within the authority of the division head. They're reviewing the document. That's why there's a separate audit process for those divisional purchase orders.
Okay. And one last technical question: is a contract to add on considered a single source? Like if you increase a purchase order?
Through the chair, that would depend on the circumstances. Okay. There are some some circumstances that would definitely be like you could actually have a competitive process, additional work could come along, and that would actually be considered a non-competitive add-on. And some of it is actually within the of the agreement. So it really is dependent upon the circumstances, and we have to look at the facts at hand. There are sometimes considerable discussion amongst the division and PMMD about whether it needs to go through a non-competitive route or whether it actually could go through an over-expenditure type approach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Are there any other questions on this item for other members? Seeing none. Councillor Holiday, did you wish to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested, and I thank staff for some of the answers, and I'm okay to move the item.
Okay. All right. Councillor Holiday is moving the recommendations in number 5, non-competitive procurement activities, the 2019 annual report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Our next item is number 10, proposed sale of surplus city-owned public land known as Brigden Place. It was held by Councillor Filion. Councillor, did you have questions you wanted to try in public first, or?
I think most or all of my questions are in camera, and since we're going in for item 12 anyway, probably easiest to deal with it that way. The only public question, if there's somebody available to answer it, is the planning process, like how whether the laneway was included in the appeal to the LPAT and densities that were assigned.
Okay. So there's somebody here that can answer that?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's Pat Matozo, through to Councillor Fillion. Councillor Fillion, I'll have to follow up with Greg Lintern from planning to get you that information. He's not available to join GGLC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Fillion will hold this item down until we go on camera?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, all right, so we're going to hold down number 10. We're going to move on to number 12, transaction update of city-owned 50 Cumberland Street and 37 Yorkville Avenue. It's Municipal Car Park number 15, which is Ward 11. Councillor Fletcher, did you have questions of staff that you wanted to try?
Very much. I just wanted to ask about the timing, which I wasn't quite on, that after the bankruptcy, what were the steps that were taken? Was this put back out, or did somebody just assume this, or is that an in-camera question?
No, go. I think staff can answer that in public. Is there somebody that can answer Councillor Fletcher's question?
Through the chair, it's Josie. I'm actually trying to find TPA. They should be on the call, Chair.
Yep. All right. Can we hold Councillor Fletcher's time, please?
Yeah. Let us check. We're still looking for them. Let me just give me a minute. Can you ask if there's anyone from TPA on the call?
Sure. Is there anyone from the Toronto Parking Authority on the call this morning?
Okay, I'm just wondering, Nick Seamles is on the line. Nick, are you aware, the question Councillor Fletcher's asked, are you able to answer that question, or do we need TPA right now?
And actually, sorry, Josie, I know even for the questions that I'm going to ask that I'm going to need Toronto Parking Authority staff.
Okay, we'll try to get them. Nick, you're on. I think you're trying to answer it.
Yeah, through the chair. It went through an insolvency, and we have city legal also on the call that can talk about the process of the insolvency, but the project did not go back out to the market.
I just missed that. Could you tell me, please?
Sorry, I think your question was, through the chair, did the project go back out to the market? Is
Correct.
that what you were asking? No, it did not.
What steps were taken once the bankruptcy happened? Obviously, they weren't building it.
Correct. They weren't building it. So it goes through an insolvency, of which then it gets handled through that insolvency proceedings, of where in this particular case, there's a party that is looking to take on the project. And that's why we're involved at this case, to look at what does that project and that constructor and that developer is looking to do with respect to the agreements that we had with the previous party.
Can I just ask again, because I was on another call, so that for half an hour. It went insolvent, went bankrupt. So obviously that person who bought it originally is not able to proceed, correct?
Correct.
And then it's now being assigned to a different developer, or I was unclear, did the city or TPA pull that back? And what was the exact date that the insolvency took place?
Okay. I'd have to get you that information. Just give me 1 second. But Sue Kim, are you also on the call? Because our legal department, who's dealing with the insolvency, has those particular dates. Just give me 1 second. I'll try to
Yeah,
find it.
so I just wanted to chime in here. We do have Chris Henderson and I believe Sue Kim Lee may be also on the call. They may be able to add some answers for legal.
Sure. So it's Christopher Henderson from legal. Can the members of the committee hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I
Yes.
can.
Great. So myself and
Go ahead.
So myself and Sue Kim Lee have been the representatives from City Legal who have been dealing with this matter. To answer your question, what happened is in March, the insolvency proceeding commenced, and the bankruptcy receiver, on behalf of a Crestford subsidiary, which is the owner of the above grade parcel of property, they put out to the market requests for opponents to purchase the parcel formerly owned by Crestford. So the city owns the substrata land, and the receivership concerns the above ground lands that were formerly owned by the Crestford subsidiary. That process of the receiver trying to find a new purchaser for the above ground lands took place over the summer. The receiver received, I believe, 2 bids and selected one as the bid that they wish to advance and seek court approval for to purchase the above ground portion.
So the was okay. And what was the original purchase price, please, Christopher?
Sue Kim, do you have that information more at hand? The original purchase, I believe, was negotiated back in 2012. Sue Kim Lee, do you have that information?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. There was a base purchase price and then a purchase price bonus. The base purchase price, sorry.
Kim, I have 32 million.
No, it was 44 million.
44 million.
44 million for the base purchase price. And then if the developer got planning approval for gross area above a certain number, they paid an additional amount.
And what was that?
It was 69 million and change. So it was just under 7 in total. In total.
So it was another, okay, 26 or so.
Yes.
On top. And what were the options that you may have to tell us in camera what the bid was? Do you have that information from the insolvency firm? Any details about this transaction?
We received a redacted copy of the agreement, so there aren't any numbers.
I guess I'm just going to ask that since this piece of property, it's impossible to build this without the Toronto Parking Authority. It's impossible to build this without the other partner. Have a hard time that somehow didn't come back to ground zero. And I'm wondering how, if we had an opportunity for it to come back to ground zero and be involved in what that would look like as far as the new deal is concerned. But they are supposed to build the parking lot. That's part of the agreement. We're basically choosing a partner. I would ask whoever, I know it was 6 when we chose the partner with that agreement. It was thoughtfully done. There's no thoughtfulness here now.
And Councillor Fletcher, I think there are staff online now from the Toronto Parking Authority.
And then I want to know how many affordable units this is 100 stories when you put the 40 stories and the 60 stories together on this site, and how much affordable housing was included in those negotiations. But I think we want to know a lot of money amounts including about the garage. Thank you.
Robin, are you online?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Councillor Fletcher. I can provide the specific numbers for you, I think, after this call. I'll just have to research my files. My recollection is all in. This property was sold for about 105 million in proceeds. Roughly the 70 odd million that was previously stated was before the 32 million valued for the garage.
Sorry, Chair, because Chair coughed. What was that last?
So the roughly 70 odd million that was referred to earlier excluded the 32 million value for the garage.
I see.
So, you know, in this particular real estate transaction involved, you know, a very large dividend as a part of the structure, including receiving a garage as part of the deal. And rather than receiving affordable housing units, instead, a dividend was generated and distributed to the city to determine how to use the funds.
So 44 million was distributed, or 70 million was distributed to the city. What was the
yes, the dividend would have been.
Councillor.
Sorry.
I can get you the cash amount after the call. I'll just have to have a quick look at our financials.
Can be ready for council, but sorry, Mr. Chair, I know you've been very good because there was a lot of people that had to look up information at the beginning. But of course, now I'm very interested in how that 70 was dispersed and what for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. And Councillor Filion, I understood you had questions of staff?
Yes, most of them would be in camera, but in public, what is the approved development here? How many square feet? What's the GFA of what somebody is allowed to build?
I ask either Sue Kim or Jeff to speak to that.
Hi, Councillor. I checked with city planning, and the approved GFA residential above grade is a little bit over 1 million gross floor area.
1 million, okay. And if I wanted to know what the value would be per square foot at that location, is that an in-camera question or a public question?
Chris, what do you think?
Sorry, I would be inclined to think that may be an in-camera question. Yeah, let's see if we can. We'll do our best to see that we have that information available when we go in camera.
Okay, I think all my questions are in camera then, Mr. Chair.
Question, Chair. I think I have a public one.
Okay, Councillor Filion, we're going to hold yours down. Councillor Holiday.
Yeah, thank you. Did we manage to get anyone from planning here? Perhaps I can just ask a question. If it can't be answered, I'll find a way. But do any developments in the vicinity of this area at any time close to now, when doing their planning or trying to calculate parking, have taken into account the existence or future existence of this garage?
I think that would be a question for planning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we have anybody from planning available?
Deputy Mayor, we don't, Chair, we don't have anyone. I've actually just texted Greg Lintern to see if he can come on. Even if we go into camera, come out of camera into public after, we can ask that question.
Okay. Thanks, Josie.
No problem.
And Chair, I mean, I can endeavor to try to find that out by council or ask it at council, but if someone does come, that'd be fine. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff that we can ask in public? Does anybody have any questions they want to try? Okay, I'm going to try one. I don't know if this is for Robin or Sue Kim. In the 2017 report on this item, there was a discussion around there'd be $125,000 monthly fee paid to the Toronto Parking Authority, and it would go up to $250,000 if the site and excavating permits were in place. And at the end of the report in 2017, it does say, I think, something about 800. There's a dollar value put to the permits. But in the reports in the background reports that I've read from 2017 until now, I can't see any confirmation that those permits were actually given to the developer or the current developer to see that $125,000 fee continued. So were the permits given that kicked that clause into place, or did they just, I know they started excavation, did they start without the permits being given to them? Can somebody clarify that for me? I can't find it in writing anywhere.
The permits, they were given. And the $125,000 per month plus CPI, it's about $145,000 a month. They've been paid by the receiver, and they're going to continue.
And that's going to continue on until
for the entire period of the receivership.
Okay, and that is based on the fact that there's going to be an 800 unit underground parking garage.
Yes.
Okay, and then I guess my question for Robin. So this arrangement was done was it 2012 originally? For the 800?
The transaction closed in 2015.
Yeah, and so how does, so it's almost 8 years later now. How does the Toronto Parking Authority, do you consult with the city planning department on whether or not an 800 unit garage is actually still something that is practical in this day and age, that you have a business case that you think an 800 car garage is going to be well used in the downtown cores? More people are using public transit and biking and.
I believe at this time there's still a strong business case to support parking in that area.
Okay, but has the business case been updated since 2012 when this was done, or has there been any input from planning?
I'm sorry, cut there. I'm assuming planning can help answer part of that question. As part of our ongoing parking operations and our observations, there's still strong parking demand in the area.
Okay, but so I guess the City of Toronto, since 2012, we changed our transportation, climate, sustainability goals and policies. Does any of that get taken into place as you looked at your project like this? Or are you still working on the same business model from 2012?
Our operating model is certainly evolving, but with respect to these questions, I think planning would best be able to answer that for you.
Okay, but from the Toronto Parking Authority, are you still, has the business case taking any of that into account and revised since 2012? Maybe I'll let you get back to me.
Yeah, we see the demand still being strong to support the business case.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. So I don't think there's any other questions in public at this point. So we do have number 10. I need, sorry, Matthew, a motion. I need two separate motions, or can we morph it all into one? Number 10 and number 12.
Mr. Chair, we can do it in one motion. We still need a reason, or we still need to know a reason why we would go into why the committee would meet in closed session on item GL 17.10.
Okay, so number 10 would be, I guess, for the I don't know what you want to call it, the financial well-being of the city, because we are selling city property to a developer. I don't know the legalese for that.
Mr. Chair, do you mean the security of the property?
Sure, that's the wording I'm looking for.
Okay, just give us 1 second and we'll prepare that motion. If you can just give us maybe
Okay.
about 1 minute. Thank you.
Councillor Fillion, when we go into camera, can we finish with number 12 since we've started it, and then we'll go back to number 10? Is that okay?
Sure. It might help to get the questions out on 10 in case staff need to look up the answers. But I'm easy either way.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we have a motion ready for closed session.
Okay, you can put it on the screen. Okay, I am moving that the General Government Licensing Committee recess its public session and meet in closed session to consider GL 17.10, proposed sale of surplus city-owned public land known as Brigden Place in Ward 13. The reason for the confidential information is the security of the property of the municipality or local board. All in favor?
Well, sorry, Mr. Chair, sorry, we have a second one on GL 1712.
Yep.
Just 1 second. So, yep.
Okay.
So we'll call that one carried.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yep.
And number 12, 17.12, transaction update at city-owned 50 Cumberland Street and 37 Yorkville Avenue, known as Municipal Car Park number 15. Reason for the confidential session is information about the terms of a proposed commercial transaction and legal advice from the city solicitor relating to the proposed transaction and potential litigation. All in favor? Carried. So we're going to be going in camera. So to any members of the public watching, we're going in camera. So the YouTube feed will be shutting down until we come back into public. And any staff, both councillors and city staff, if you don't have to be here for either one of these items, if you could please excuse yourself from the call. Thank you very much. And then we'll just give it a few minutes, Matthew.
understanding the nature of those questions, that those should be posed in the public session, not in the closed session.
Okay, well, I haven't heard the question yet from Councillor Fillion on number 10, so we will try them, but if not, we're going to have to get the planner in. Correct, Councillor Fillion?
Sure, well, I'm glad to ask.
So why don't we start with number 10? Councillor Fillion
month or whether it can be deferred a month and then we can provide the additional information.
Through the chair, our preference is to get it approved as soon as possible because we do believe that it's a good deal, and we've been waiting for a long time just given all the COVID-related delays. We can adjust to anything that the committee requests, and we'll work with our developer partner in light of that. I would note that the sale has been done at fair market value. Our appraisal staff did an evaluation that gave us a range of between $10 and $12 million for the total parcel. And we're ending up at the high end of that. So it's deemed by our appraisal team as being done at fair market value. And the calculations, Councillor Fillion will go through them with you, just don't have them.
Sure, and I, I'm not doubting at all that you've done your work properly. I just think that information should be available to us.
Yeah, so could we, if you're comfortable, Councillor Fillion, can we send this item to City Council without recommendations? So Pat, you can get analysis and can get the information that the councillor, we can make a decision and have it by council, and then we can deal with it on council quickly if you have the information that Councillor Fillion is comfortable with.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Is that okay, Councillor Fillion?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, it's Councillor Fletcher. Just a very quick question. Could the applicant build what they want without this lane? How central is this lane to the final product?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Fletcher, it's in the center of the development, so it is critical.
So they can't.
That's correct. It's right dead center.
And so, did you negotiate affordable housing in the development for the lane, or?
I think through the chair, this development goes back a number of years, Councillor Fletcher. So I don't believe it's a private sale. It's not city land, and it's actually just a small strip of laneway in the middle, like it's an alleyway within the center of the property. I think this developer has been amassing the properties over time, so I'm not sure.
To their.
And sorry, I didn't realize the laneway was in the middle of the property, so so I am very interested in the answers on the planning questions. So the middle of the property, how would they put in an application, a viable application that didn't include laneway?
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would have had, and if they did, and then they changed it, it must have been a very substantial change.
Okay.
When you say it went back a long time, Pat, when was it started?
Give me a second. Looking at the DAP, just give me a sec. I'll have to get back to you on it. I know that it went. I don't have the date as when it. 2016 was the original application.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
So Pat, you'll have those, and Allison will have the questions for council?
We will.
Okay. All right. So, Councillor Fillion, are you comfortable?
Yeah.
We'll move on to number 12?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fillion. Councillor Fletcher, you're comfortable?
There's a lot of questions here, but we'll get at them at council. That's good.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we are going to go back to number 12. Councillor Fletcher, questions of staff on number 12?
I did ask quite a few. I'm just interested in what would the $32 million
increase of substantially, I would say more than doubled. So right now we're looking anywhere between 75 to 125,000 per spot, depending on what kind of development we're participating in and how efficient the floor plates are.
So what's then the cost, if you don't mind doing that math for me? So 32 million to rebuild 8 spots, which is how many levels of parking was that? Maybe Ms. Oliphant is still on. Is she still here?
So the cost per stall on this transaction is about $40,000 a stall. So that's 800
total. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's 800 stalls at 40,000 gives you 32 million. And today, depending on the type of development, we would have to look at it from a cost consultant perspective. But I'll give you a range. You can look at anywhere between 75 to 125,000 a spot is what we're currently negotiating in some of the transactions we're working through at Greenfield.
So that, to me, how was that taken in? That means whoever buys the property has to increase, they have to still pay that amount, which would be what? If it's 75 to 100,000 a spot, what would that garage now, those spots? I think that's my question, and if you can't answer that, then perhaps Ms. Oliphant, is she still on the phone here? Is she still at the meeting?
Yes, I am, Councillor.
Okay.
Under this agreement, our cost is locked at the original 40,000 per space, so that won't change for us.
But that will mean that it won't be able to be built without any dollars from parking authority. How would that be built? How can you make 800 spaces if the cost is doubled or tripled per spot?
I'm not familiar with Nick's assessment on construction costs, but we arranged at the time to purchase what was fair value for the parking spaces as an operation. And at this moment, we would be looking at the LCs and that kind of thing to ensure that they cover sufficiently the cost of the build, so that we're not a developer. We seek our developer to build that and construct it on our behalf to deliver those 800 spaces, and in their own financial arrangements through the LCs and the bonding, we ensure that we receive our 800.
So here through the insolvency or the receiver would have built in the $32 million period full stop for building the spaces. There's no way to get out of that or to come back and, can somebody come back and say, I can't build those? Because unfortunately the whole thing's been torn down, so there's no parking, and it's going to go on for a long time. But I'm interested to know from a legal standpoint where that puts us if they come back and say, well, we can't possibly build 800 spots for you because it costs too much money. And somebody's got to be... Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask Kim to comment on that? Because I believe our security is quite strong in this regard.
Councillor Fletcher, we're holding LCs and a performance bond currently. TPA is holding it. And the amounts were based on the 2015 amount, because Altus was the cost consultant, and we're getting those amounts updated because the 2012 deal, the original deal, it contemplates 110% value of LC to secure the cost of completion for the garage. So Altus, so before this deal can go through, I mean, it needs committee and council approval, but before any closing with the prospective, with the successful proponent, those numbers have to be updated by Altus and satisfactory security provided for 110%. And the purchaser knows that, and the receiver knows that. So that will be looked after. And, staff is aware of this.
dividend its entirety like that, but I have to ask Heather and the team, I'll do that.
Well, it might not be a dividend, but it's direct from Toronto Parking Authority.
Understood.
It's not from parking revenue, which is, we understand that's the dividend. There's a certain amount that comes yearly in that way. But this is a pretty big cash cow that we've had.
Understood.
Technically, usually when there's this much money, it gets devoted into a particular cause. So I would like to know that. I'm sure that's probably a public question. But nonetheless, I've asked it.
Understood. I'm getting the information. I'm trying to get it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fletcher, do you have other questions? Councillor Fillion, have you next on my list? Questions of staff?
Yes, thank you. Just first of all, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. So Toronto Parking Authority had this piece of property, made a deal with a developer, sold the rights to the density above ground to the developer, and secured the construction of 800 parking spots. Do I have that right?
That's correct. It was a 1,000 space garage at the time.
Okay, and the 800 spaces have to be built by the terms of the deal regardless of what it costs the developer to build them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, the value of the above grade has that come and gone, or is that still up for grabs in any way here?
I'll defer to Kim, but my understanding is as part of the original transaction, the air rights component was just give me a moment, the $25 million.
Councillor Fillion,
Yep.
as part of the deal, if the developer secured more than 550,000 GFA, they would have to pay a purchase price bonus. So in December 2015, when the sale for the above grade lands with the density was sold to the developer, they did pay $29 million. And if this deal...
Sorry, who paid $29 million?
The developer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, developer paid. And if they were to go back and get more density, the bonus payment still applies.
Sorry, so let me jump ahead a bit and then I'll go back. I guess it's a question of either Allison or Nick, but I'm guessing that the density on this site would now be worth closer to $200 million. Would that be very roughly correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. Approximately 200 million or so.
So is that closed? Like the fact that we got 70 instead of 200, is that done? Or do we have any possibility at this point of saying, wait a minute, why did we sell this for so little? We still have some leverage here in getting today's market value.
Well, at the time of the transaction, Councillor, it was sold at market value. The real estate market has appreciated over time, and it's climbed to, the numbers that you're describing. So at the time of the deal, that was at market value. It could have gone both ways, but that was the number that was secured as part of that transaction and as part of that agreement of purchase and sale.
Well, yeah, and I would, based on some knowledge I have about transactions involving the parking authority back in the day, I would certainly want to look very carefully into how that market value was determined
assessment on per square foot buildable at this point in time, so it's not at the higher end. It's more in the medium portion of the valuation in that area. Real estate is expensive in that area of town, so we're using a very conservative number when the councilor is referring to about $200 million is the value of today's land. But that's 8 years since the transaction.
Sure. So the difference on the residential is something like 130 million. The difference on the parking is something like 50 million. You know, but what I'm trying to find out, and I still haven't got an answer, is that all irrelevant, or because we, you know, have something here for approval, do we still have leverage in getting something closer to today's market value?
Why don't I add, because add some comments, because it seems like some of your questions are asking sort of what's possible in the context of the receivership. So generally speaking, in the context of a receivership, the receiver and the court recognizes and will deal with existing legal rights that are locked down and frozen as of the date of the receivership. So the receivership was commenced in March of this year, and at that time there was, the various agreements that the city had entered into and the TPA had entered into with the various developers were sort of locked down. So I think it would be an unlikely legal case that we could take the position that having watched the change in the market for the last 8 years, that we were going to somehow expect that we could reopen the original deal that was entered into and seek to substantially rewrite it. I think that would be problematic in the context of the receivership.
And would the answer be the same if the original price was not really market value? And I have no knowledge about whether it was or wasn't. Just trying to determine whether it's worth looking at that.
I think that's correct. Essentially, the court would say, city, you entered into this deal, and the terms that you entered into it were acceptable to you at the time you entered into it. So again, the rights of the city and the TPA are being recognized and being dealt with that existed at the moment of the commencement of the receivership. So it is problematic to go back and in a hypothetical world, imagine how it could have been done differently.
And what was the original deal regarding the timing of the construction of the parking spots?
Last question, Councillor Fillion.
So Kim, do you have that?
Yes, I do. It was 7 or 8 years to get financing and to get planning approvals. And then after they start construction, the developer has to finish the replacement parking, underground parking, within 30 months.
And just to add, because this detail might help, the original deal contemplated that after the sale of the land, the then existing parking garage was leased back from the developer to the TPA under a lease agreement, and then the purpose of these monthly rental payments, the monthly lost revenue payments that are being paid by the developer, these were intended and structured to compensate for the loss of the use of the demolished garage in the period of time after it was demolished before it's rebuilt and brought back into service by the developer.
I may ask for another round, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question in another round, if that's possible.
Okay, all right.
And I have questions.
Yep, Councillor Holiday, you're next on the list. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one piece of information just came. So there's to build us a garage or they can't build their development. Whether we put cars in it or not doesn't matter. The concrete pylons and floors need to be there. Okay. What's the net present value, or how does TPA calculate the net present value of the revenue stream of the parking that's going to come out of that garage? You know what the figure is.
I can get that for, in theory, we discount the cash flows and that cash flows across the 20 to 25-year period at 5%.
25 years, 5%. Any, like, are we tens of millions, hundreds of millions, millions? It's just like order of magnitude?
It's millions.
Okay, all right. So not material in terms of the 100. So can I just make sure I got my facts right? So we got a cash payment of about $70 million when the building, when the air rights sold, and then we received a $29 million payment for bonuses. Whether you call it dividend or not, it's cash. And then we're also getting 800 spaces for the agreement, and we don't really care how much it costs them to build it because they owe it to us. And then the last is we're getting a monthly fee for the lost revenues of parking. And are those continuing?
Yes, they're continuing. They're being paid.
Okay, and that makes up for the whole the dividend to the city from TPA. And then eventually we'll refill the parking lot with 800 cars, and we'll resume, and we'll have a revenue stream out of that. Okay. And so all of that, so we got about $99 million in cash. There's a value for the cars and for that garage below that has some future value, and then a monthly value. And do we know what is the difference between the cost to build the parking spaces, the 800 spaces when we made the deal versus today? I think I heard numbers of like $100,000 a spot. So that make it $80 million.
I don't have that value.
I think Nick mentioned it.
Yeah. The value we're transacting on the low-grade parking right now could range anywhere between 75 to 125, depending on the situation and what kind of development. Yeah.
So a middle number would be $80 million, but when the deal was contemplated back in 2012, they fixed a price of $32 million. Have I got that right?
Correct. 40,000 per spot.
But it's not our problem if it went from $32 million to $80 million or whatever it is. That's the developer's dealing with that. Whatever the developer is that's buying this property today has to figure that one out.
Correct.
Okay, and so the matter before us is only to allow, I guess, the courts to assign a new developer all these responsibilities. And staff's recommendation is the whole deal is integral throughout. Materially, all the numbers are all the same to the city, and your recommendation is to permit a new person to take on the responsibility. That's all we're talking about here.
Correct.
Okay. And over to legal, I guess the last question is it didn't sound like it before that we had an opportunity to reopen this deal and to renegotiate things. That this is a fairly straightforward transaction from one entity to the other. Or is there a chance that the council can rip this thing apart and start re-talking numbers?
I think that would be very problematic. And the other thing I would add is that if we purported to dig in our heels and say we didn't consent to the assignment, the court would have the authority to assign the property without our consent. So the court can issue something called a vesting order, and it essentially just says, for all purposes, developer A is deemed to be developer B. They would prefer to have our consent, and that preference gives us the opportunity to fine-tune some of the amendments, but it could simply be forced onto us if we were to say no for a reason that the court thought had no legal merit, which would be, for example, to try to reopen the deal in any major way.
Okay, so if council said, we want to do something, we don't want 800 spots, we want half of them, the strata drops, and that would materially change everything, right? Like, we own to a certain datum line on an elevation, so if we were to play with that would become a problem.
I would think so, yes. I mean, presumably GDs are the parties who initiated this receivership. At some point, they could say, we've exhausted our patience in seeking your consent. We're just going to do it over your objection. So we are very happy that a number of things have been secured in the proposed amendments that are favorable to the city, securing some things that were for which there was some uncertainty. So it is the opinion of legal and staff that it is a net favorable proposal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Councillor Nunziata or Councillor Matlow, did you have any questions on this item? Councillor Nunziata, questions? I think you're muted, Councillor Nunziata.
You hear me?
Okay, now, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, just on same question that Councillor Holiday asked to the city solicitor. So the city entered in a deal legally, which is binding, correct? And even though over the years the value has increased, that's a legal binding agreement. And for us to reconsider at this point, it financially it could cause a lot of problems for the city. Am I correct?
Yes, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Councilor Nunziata, the sale of the above-grade lands, it was completed December 2015. Developer paid, and certain obligations continued, like building a replacement municipal parking garage. That's not going away, and so the sale and the sale price, I mean, that was dealt with in 2015. Now, if there is a requirement for payment of purchase price bonus for more GFA if they were to get more GFA. Now, that's going to continue, but the sale price itself, that's done.
Yeah, and that's binding, legally binding. You
Yes.
can't renege on that. Just like you purchase a house. Once you purchase it, you can't go back. And my house is worth more now in 6 months than it was. So I just want to get that straight because basically, I mean, the questions that are being asked, it seems like that some councils want to reopen the deal, and in my opinion, legally, we can't do that. Correct?
Not the purchase price, because
Right.
that's done. Like the basic purchase price, that was done. Yeah,
Exactly.
that was completed. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Councillor Matlow, did you have questions? Are you good, Councillor Matlow?
It was very kind of you, Mr. Chair. I'll indicate if I have any questions. I don't at this time.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure everybody's covered.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Filion, I believe you asked for, and Councillor Fletcher for a second round of questions.
Yeah.
So within Councillor Fletcher, if you want to go ahead.
Running low on battery, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know what the, how much money annually this garage brought in. It probably is one of the bigger, better payers. It was a pretty full garage. And then how much the replacement is per year. Do you have that as part of this report?
Councillor Fletcher, on an annual basis, just prior to closing, net profit of this garage was about the 1.5 million. So our current pacing, I guess, compensation payment while waiting for construction of the garage does approximate what it was bringing in. For future state, I will have to get back to you.
So just to be clear, it was 1.5 million annually net.
Yeah, approximately.
For this particular garage. It was full just about all the time.
Yes, yes.
And
yes, it was very busy.
Yeah, the deal was to replace that 1.5. And would there have been any, or is that the amount that
receiving the escalated $125K per month. Obviously, when we open the new garage with 800 spaces, the annual profit per space index will be about the same. I would have to get back to you on our updated business.
And how many spaces there would be attributed to the residential portion of this site, to the above-grade residential?
I'm unfamiliar with that. If Sue Kim or Nick could comment.
That's really a planning question. How many parking spaces for whatever GFA? That's something that planning determines.
Well, so the 800 spaces are unique to the parking authority, or those belong to the parking authority? Are there other spaces that you know about, or you don't know about them? Because we're down 200.
If I could jump in here, there is separate above-grade levels for the residents, which are separate and distinct from the 800 spaces that will be coming to TPA.
I'm sorry, above grade, you mean above grade? Below?
Yeah, there's a
the base of the condo?
Correct. There's a couple of levels of above-grade parking as well, and that will be for the residents. But that's separate from the 800 spaces that TPA is set to take over.
And is that part of the 40 stories or the 60 stories? Do you happen to know the above-grade parking?
I believe it is. Nick, do you have that information?
So through the chair, Councillor, what I see here in the report from there's about 400 spaces for residential parking. 800 are spaced for public parking garage, and 400 are dedicated for residential garage, for the residential component of the garage. I don't know exactly where it's located within the development itself, but that's what I'm pulling up from the report.
We'll find, those are public questions anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Fillion, did you want another round?
Please. When did Altus get involved in this transaction? What year? Does anybody know?
Councillor Fillion?
Yeah.
I don't have all the details, but I know that Altus was involved before the sale closing in December 2015 because they had to provide cost to complete figures for the underground parking garage.
So I'd be interested in, I don't expect you to have the answers today, is the kind of origin date of their involvement and who the principal was at Altus who was dealing with this transaction. If you could talk to me between now and council on that. On the bonusing, can somebody help me with the deal, how much value it put on that extra density compared, and how much was realized by the parking authority, the city, and how much was realized by the applicant? In other words, was it a sweetheart deal for the applicant if they only paid X amount for additional density when it was obviously worthwhile? Can anybody answer that?
Well, through the chair, I can give you more a factual response on that on the question, Councillor. The deal is predicated on 550,000 square feet, and that wasn't part of the deal. So I'm going to be looking at this from any real estate transaction and how we do it. So that would have probably been the square footage that you could develop given the current zoning, and then the bonus density would be what the developer would be able to achieve otherwise, of which there was a $60 per square foot value for the work that the developer would undertake to get anything greater than the 550 square feet, which would be your base. So what has transpired in this transaction, that number has doubled. So you're about 1 million square point, they would be paid what they refer to as lost revenue compensation. The number has been pegged at 125 with increase of CPI. I think Sue Kim has referenced the number in today's dollars being approximately 145,000 per month, and that is to compensate the loss of revenue over the term prior to the property being received in its final form.
Yes, but what did it cost the TPA to lease back its parking that was still sitting there for 5 years or however long it was?
I believe the number that I've seen in the reports is 90,000 a month, but I'll try to get you that firm number.
So roughly $1 million a year, something like that. For how many years?
If I may, I can give you the numbers per year.
Okay.
In 2015, we paid $40,000. In 2016, for the year, it would have been a stub period, I think, in December.
Yeah.
In 2016, we paid $1.2 million. In 2017, we paid $1.4 million.
So that is was for our parking spot that we, like the parking spots the Toronto Parking Authority was dealing with after it had sold does that seem to anybody to be a normal deal?
No.
To my recollection, if I may, Councillor, other transactions that we have entered into, we have closed and then leased back to continue operating the lot until such time it's developed. So that is a typical scenario. In
Typical?
this case,
Sorry, if I could ask a typical scenario during what period of time?
to continue operating until the construction is on the lot.
Under what period of time in the parking authority's history would this have been a typical way of dealing with things?
I would say across a 5-year period. The Yorkville Cumberland transaction was the first of its kind.
Right. And I know, for example, with the Capitol Theater, there was another similar thing that was very obviously unfavorable to the parking authority. So I guess I'm looking for the time period, year to year, that this type of transaction was typical.
In terms of actual operations, it would be 2015 to 2020. We still consider transactions right now where we would operate under lease until the construction is commenced. So this is still an ongoing arrangement. To the best of my knowledge, Cumberland was the first of its kind and being, I think, initially contemplated as early as 2008 to 2012, somewhere in there. I think that was the model at the time that was can continue to operate a parking garage in this location. I think we have great security around the development of it. And I believe it's a deal worth proceeding. If we don't proceed, we would be looking at either disposing or developing a garage ourselves, and we are not developers. And so for TPA, we recommend proceeding with this agreement as contemplated originally. I think it will continue to bring value for the city going forward.
Councillor Fillion, do you want a further briefing between now and council from legal, TPA, and?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Robin, if I can leave that with you and Josie to make sure a meeting set up with Councillor Fillion, and I don't, Councillor Fletcher, maybe you could include her as well?
Yeah, will do.
It's Josie. We're setting that up as we speak. They're doing that right now with Council Fletcher and Council Fillion separately. Okay. And we'll bring the city planning will be in the discussion also.
All right. Is that good, Councillor Fillion? Okay. All right. So I don't hear or haven't seen anybody else that would like to speak on this. The questioning is done, so I am going to move that the committee resume in public session. All in favor? Carried. And that carries. So I'll ask the clerk to open up the meeting to members of the public and staff. In addition, the live stream will be resumed now that the closed session is over. So Matthew, I'll give you a couple of minutes and let me know when we're good to resume in public. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We'll let you know just as soon as we can. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Fillion. On number 10, did you want to move a motion to send that to council without recommendations?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, can you drop that up, Matthew?
Yes, Councillor, we'll have that on number 10.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the web stream is back available. You can proceed if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. So to members of the committee, staff, and public, we are back in session. So we were dealing with two items again. Item number 12, transaction update of city-owned 50 Cumberland Street and 37 York. Bill, how do you, Councillor Fillion, you held that. Would you like to speak to it? I believe there's a motion.
Yes, no, I have nothing to add at this point.
Mr. Chair, we're just getting that motion ready.
Okay, Councillor Fillion is moving a motion that this item be forwarded to City Council without number 15, operated by the Toronto Parking Authority. Would anybody like to speak to this item?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I think there were some bandwidth issues there. Can we just go back? We didn't quite hear you on the vote on the motion, Councillor Fillion's motion. Could we just do that again on the record?
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So Councillor Fillion is moving item number 10, proposed sale of surplus city-owned public land known as Brigden Place in Ward 13. Councillor Fillion's moving a motion to forward this item to City Council without recommendations. All in favor? Carried. Our next item, are we still good, Matthew?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is 17.12, transaction update of city-owned 50 Cumberland Street and 37 Yorkville Avenue, known as Municipal Car Park number 15, owned and operated by the Toronto Parking Authority. Would anybody like to speak in public on this item? Seeing none, so I am going to move the recommendations in the report that are before us. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Okay, that item carries. And motion to adjourn. Councillor Holiday, all in favor? Carried. I want to thank everybody in staff, and I hope you and your family stay safe and well, and we will talk again soon. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Matthew. And thank you to everybody. Jennifer, thank you.